What's up, everybody? I just finished Stranger Things season 5, and I walked away with it underwhelmed. And just off the bat, I'm going to give it maybe 4 out of 10, maybe a 2 out of 5 at the most. So basically, what I want to do is I want to go through each chapter or each episode and kind of give a synopsis on what I did, and what I didn't like. The crawl, basically, I didn't have any problems with it. I don't mind that they were trying to find Vecna, blah, blah, blah. I think chapter 2 is where my first gripes come, is where they introduce us to basically a new character, Holly. And I don't mind that they introduced us to her. I don't mind that she was kidnapped. I think what I do mind is how much in depth they went with this character. We already have a full roster. The basketball team is full, and they added another character to the mix. And I just felt like I wanted to take the journey with our main characters, and I felt like Holly became basically the focus point of this last season. Chapter 3, The Trap. Like I said, basically, this is an entire episode, from what I remember, just about Holly. And like I said, we basically wasted an entire episode. I don't mind that Max found her. That would have been cool. I don't know if we necessarily needed to spend so much time on Holly. Chapter 4 was where it kind of turned a little bit more cool, is that Will discovers his powers. The biggest problem I have with this is that Vecna basically tells him, you're weak, you're pathetic, this is why I chose you. So he basically is supposed to have overcome that when awakens his powers. The problem that I have is that he awakens his power, he becomes cool. I mean, it was cool, it was bad to the bone. And then immediately in chapter 5, he reverts back to being weak and basically the same person that Vecna had just accused him of being. But I thought he was supposed to overcome that when he discovered his powers. No, he basically goes back to being weak and soft. Escape from Comatose, I didn't mind it so much because we kind of delve more into Vecna and who he is. No problem with that, but I do want to say what I didn't like is that they brought the sister back. And if anyone knows, I mean, who is even a fan of the sister, she's basically brought to us in, I want to say, season 2, and that's the last we see of her. And she instantly comes in, and she's just like a negative Nancy. She just wants to like ruin Eleven's plans for prosperity. Chapter 7, The Bridge, it's basically where they finally all reunite, and they're going to come up with their plan to destroy Vecna. So, didn't have a problem with that. Some of the stuff is kind of crazy. Like, I want to say, I think the mom in this episode like gets out of bed and destroys these demo dogs. A lot of this stuff is just very convenient, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. So I kind of feel this is where you kind of start to feel that everything's being rushed, and I think it's because they wasted so much time on just the introduction of new characters. Okay, final episode. I have no problem with the plan, but this is where Elle is basically told that the military will never stop coming for her, and that as long as she's alive, they like this will never stop. The cycle will always continue. So basically, like I said, the sister comes in being a negative Nancy and just ruins Elle's plan and everybody's plan to live happily ever after. So, like I said, every time we're introduced to her, she's like messing things up. Even in season 2, she's like trying to turn Elle into like a murderer, robber, whatever. She's basically now she's here to ruin everybody's day again. So last episode, got no problem with them going there. They're gonna go fight him. Basically, the exact same thing they did in season 4. They're gonna go fight him in his dormant body. Don't mind that. I think the battle was a little underwhelming. I don't think everybody was pushed to their brink. Like, it didn't look like it took a lot out of them. Everybody basically walked away without a scratch, literally. So that's fine. They defeat Vecna. They find out who he is. They start to get deeper into that. They find out who he is. They explain kind of how he got his powers, and they defeat him. That's fine. I think all that was cool. I think I instantly have a problem when they come back to the military. I think that the military. I think they could have gave us a happy ending if the military would have basically been waiting for them in the Upside Down, at the lab. And when they blew up the lab, it basically takes care of the military. And then they come back to Hawkins, and then they can live happily ever after. They don't choose to do this. Instead, the military's waiting back on their home turf, and Elle sacrifices herself because of what her negative Nancy sister told her, is that this thing will never end, which is fine. But I think it's a bigger problem with what I'm having with a lot of these shows and why I don't like to invest a lot of time into them. But once I start one, I just basically have to finish. And so in this episode, or toward at the end, or what's wrong with these show writers where they basically have to eliminate the main character, and they have to sacrifice themselves for the greater good. And I've seen that with a lot of these shows, and I don't understand why these people or these writers are afraid to just give us a happily ever after. And I think that would have maybe softened, some of my criticisms if we kind of would have got a happy ending. So everybody basically gets a happy ending except for Mike, who's basically invested, 10 years of his life with Elle, and now he's basically left to just story writing. So these are like some of the things that I have. It did feel rushed. I didn't like the introduction of all these new characters. I wish the characters would have been tested more. And I think if they all would have walked away, kind of like this guy's got, literally none of them, I don't think any of them walk away with a scratch. And Elle basically sacrifices herself because the military. I think we could have gotten rid of the military and these programs with the explosion of the lab in the Upside Down. And whatever, lay a booby trap for Dr. K. Literally, it doesn't end that way. Dr. K gets away with it, and we just fast forward 18 months, and all of these military people are still alive. So like I said, what I would have done, put them all in Upside Down, blow them all up, come back to Hawkins. Maybe everybody does move on. Like I said, I don't mind what ended up happening with each and every character, except for Elle and Mike. So everything was cool except for these things. So anyway, I'm going to ultimately give that season a 4 out of 10 at the most. I'm closer to 3 out of 10. And maybe 1.5 out of 5. 2 at the most, if I'm trying to be nice. But anyway, that's all I got.